Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the founder of Gypsy Build. He has been featured on the DIY Network. Today's guest is Beau Dunavant. Beau, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Hey, thank you, brother. Honored.
For sure, my man. So we are going to just jump right into things. I've got 4 questions, Beau, just to kind of get the conversation ball rolling, so to speak. The first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific morning routine or morning ritual that you like to stick to on most mornings?
Yeah. So I guess I start my day. The alarm goes off about 5:30.
Okay.
I hit snooze several times.
Okay.
Like many times. I roll out of the house about 7 o'clock. And off to whatever job that I'm working that day.
Okay.
Whatever project I'm working on. And I do some mantras and stuff in the
Okay.
beginning. To
Okay,
kind of
cool.
ground myself before
Okay.
I get into the day.
So if you don't mind, because writing and mantras are a big part of my morning routine, kind of how I jumpstart my day. So if you don't mind, maybe just giving myself and the listeners a little insight into kind of like what is the value or the importance for you, Beau, in regards to those mantras, and if you don't mind sharing maybe like a couple of those, that would be really cool.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, mantras are a way to ground,
Okay.
but also like kind of really set me up for a successful day, just all the way around. you
Right.
know. And sometimes those mantras are done in like a sitting meditation. Sometimes
Okay.
it's driving down the highway, counting beads,
Right.
108
Right.
times.
Okay.
And it's usually just, I'm somebody who needs like, it's hard for me to recite the whole spiritual paragraph.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if I'm triggered or something, I need like tangible action steps, right? So my morning mantra is, I guess for instance, I'm strong, I'm capable, I'm beautiful, I love myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just repeat that.
Okay,
108
cool.
times. I shoot for 108,
108?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
but it depends on traffic sometimes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, there might be another word or two that slips in there
yeah.
if traffic's a little crazy, right?
For sure.
So like kind of this mantra practice, did this kind of form out of maybe like a yoga practice, or was there maybe another spiritual practice that kind of like helped you be awakened to the mantras and repeating this?
Right.
Kind of just share that a little bit if you don't mind.
For me, in full transparency, it's formed out of anxiety.
Okay. Okay.
Just overthinking and overdoing.
Okay.
And it doesn't make anxiety go away
Right.
at all, but it definitely sets me straight. It's only like maybe 10 to 15 minutes
Right.
in the
Right.
morning, but if I don't do it, I notice it. I notice my mind just racing all day.
Right. Right.
Rather than being diligent with what I'm doing.
For sure,
like, finish
for
this
sure.
task.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the bank. And around age 27, 28, my whole life just changed. I was married for 7 years at that point.
Okay.
Divorce, and it was just everything that I thought was going to be happening was gone.
Okay.
So it was like full reset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay, like in my 20s, you had mentioned earlier before we started, both middle fingers to the world.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that, just very resistant to like whatever the man or conditioning or the way things are and all this stuff.
Right.
And with that resistance, it just created resistance to everything. Right? So it was like a mixture of like anxiety and then like adopted anger, right? Adopted beliefs that weren't mine. I thought I had to be this pissed off,
Right.
to change the world, etc. But sorry, I went off on a
Oh,
thing,
you're
but,
fine.
like,
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
That's kind of like where it came from. It's like this whole like in like astrology and spiritual kind of out there stuff. Sometimes it's called Saturn's return or
Right,
you're
right.
27, like shit or get off the pot. Like,
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
gonna keep staying, like in the suspended adolescence, or are you gonna move forward and talk? You've been talking about doing all these things. Are you gonna do them? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
But I kind of had to break myself down to this like foundational level. Like, okay, who am I? Like, really, who am I?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, how do I feel? And then build myself back up. But I'm still in that process. You know,
that's awesome, man. And I really feel that those of us that have kind of stepped into that self-awareness, we do realize that it's a continual process until the day we take our last breath and all of that unfolds in our lives. Like it is a continual process, and we are a masterpiece that is in the process of being created as we would create our lives for ourselves. So
absolutely,
I agree. I agree 100% with you that you're a work in progress. I'm a work in progress, and those people that have that self-awareness, we realize that we're works in progress, and it is cool, man, and it's beautiful and it's powerful. Right. So I'm like already super jacked up to kind of get back into like what you were talking about, but I do want to kind of just no, you're good, man. You're good, because I could easily, because a big part of my story is anxiety, and some of the reasons why I do the writing and have the mantras and different things like that ties into some of the stuff that you've already shared. So I could easily just kind of like, we could spend the next hour talking about what you just kind of shared, but I do kind of want to just finish out these kind of warm-up questions, and we'll definitely get back into that. So but I do appreciate you kind of just already being super transparent about where the mantras came from, because it's important for me, it's important for other human beings, just to kind of like be able to look behind the curtain of other human beings and be like why are they doing this, and this person's been successful, so kind of like what works for them, and we can kind of glean. So thank you for sharing that, Beau.
Yeah, awesome.
Now the second question is, do you have a favorite book or book that you like to gift often? Now, with this question and then the next two after it, if there's more than one, feel free to share. So for this one, a favorite book or book that you like to gift often.
My favorite book, my favorite author is Ernest Hemingway.
Okay,
and
awesome.
So anything that he's written is something that I read. I used to read it a lot when I was traveling. Mm-hmm.
So what about Hemingway? Because, I mean, anybody that's listening to the podcast has heard of Hemingway. He's got, there's different quotes in his literature. But what has been just maybe one thing, kind of narrow it down, what's been one thing that has really powerfully impacted your life that you have gleaned or learned from Hemingway and his work?
So with Hemingway, the first time I read Hemingway was the first time that I actually kind of heard about and understood like Europe.
Okay.
When I was like 17.
Okay, cool.
And I was like, wow, like I want to go there.
Uh-huh.
I want to hang out and like drink whiskey or
whatever
and write,
Uh-huh.
And that being said, I eventually going to Europe, it was, there's a lot of awakenings and eye-opening things.
Okay.
For me.
Cool.
So,
all right, so Europe, he kind of opened your eyes to Europe, and okay, sweet, awesome, I love it, man. Okay, now the next one, which you've kind of already shared your morning mantras, but outside of that, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, or word? Now, this could be because all of us human beings go through different seasons, so maybe this is a quote, mantra, or word for this specific season that you're experiencing, or maybe it's a quote, mantra, or word from a previous season that you've experienced. So favorite quote, mantra, or word?
The first thing that came to mind when you asked me that question is vulnerability is always the answer. Is what showed up for me. Cool.
So break that down a little bit. Why is that kind of quote powerful or impactful for you?
I feel that anytime that I'm fully vulnerable, either with my partner or with you or somebody at a gas station, like in whatever way that looks, I feel like I've just grown past my ego a little bit. I'm now able to accept more, to grow more, to understand more in my life in general.
Right.
And specifically like in relationship with a romantic partner, I feel like it's it always deepens the connection just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that person feels like they can be vulnerable.
Right.
Or you can feel like you can be vulnerable, etc.
Yeah.
I think it helps us, or at least me, it helps me not operate in that fear and scarcity mindset. You know? So, yeah.
Cool.
Vulnerability.
Yeah. So, and that's something for me personally, Beau, this whole kind of concept of vulnerability, because when I was growing up, like, I never really heard the word vulnerable or vulnerability. And now because of social media and different, influences that we have kind of through that medium or outlet, we're starting to see men specifically talk more about, the power and vulnerability. And I'm kind of trying to grasp all that, but I've also, experienced like the more vulnerable I am, specifically kind of on social media and just sharing like, hey, these are my thoughts, my feelings, specifically through writing, like it just really is freeing for me. It really provides this release for me. There's nothing to hide. So, was this kind of like vulnerability and realizing the importance and the power of it, did that kind of birth out of that, that season when you were kind of like 27, 28 and kind of going through kind of that transition in your life? Is that kind of where that birthed or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, I had to be like completely honest with myself. I had to be like completely vulnerable with myself first, like really like ask and answer questions that like I needed to know the answers to, and I think that vulnerability with the self is like the first like really important part.
Yeah.
Oh, like I'm feeling sad.
Right.
I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling happy. Like really owning what you're feeling. Like, oh, okay. Like, and I'm cool with that. I don't have to feel the ways that I think that somebody else wants me to feel.
Absolutely.
Things that we go through.
Yeah.
Which aren't even a reality.
Right.
But yeah, it begun there, and it's only gotten broader and broader and a little more confusing as time goes on.
Yeah, right. Now I wanna touch on, because you had kind of mentioned several times when you were kind of explaining the vulnerability piece for you personally, you mentioned again several times about like in the setting of like an intimate relationship. So just kind of like how have you found that vulnerability piece so vital and important in regards to an intimate relationship? Because you mentioned kind of being vulnerable with somebody maybe at the gas station and different things like that. But for me personally, in my experiences, is that the vulnerability is the most powerful, but also for me personally, again, I'm speaking for myself, it's also the most difficult sometimes in that intimate relationship, because we don't want to be rejected, and there's all these different dynamics that aren't in play with the person at the gas station. So that vulnerability piece, kind of break that down if you don't mind, Beau, in regards to that intimate relationship.
Right, exactly. I think the vulnerability piece in an intimate relationship, a close relationship, is scary when it comes to like, am I going to say this certain thing, or am I going to state a boundary, and the person who I love very much in front of me, I'm going to be this vulnerable with them, and what happens if I say this and they don't like it, right? So attachment to an outcome, right? And I think for me, that's the biggest part of being vulnerable in my relationship, is like saying how I feel, and not like forcefully, in an argument, but just in general, being vulnerable with how I feel, and not being attached to an outcome of like the past on how I've said that and things that happened, because she's not that person, and she's here now. She is the future, right? And I think that's where I catch myself a lot, needing to push myself over that line of like, all right, like really no, like be vulnerable right now, like be you all the way.
Absolutely.
Like let this person see you for who you are, because it's good for you as well.
Absolutely. And
and that's where that anxiety comes in, that fear, right? Like I'm like, oh, what could happen? What could happen?
Yeah.
And I'm not like, freaking out outwardly, but inside, I'm
Inside,
losing it,
100%.
right?
Yep.
And then as soon as I like just let it out, I'm grounded. It's fine. You know, like, and I've just like grown a little bit. And I feel more sovereign and embodied, and like if I can accomplish that, I can accomplish anything.
Right.
That was the hardest part, and everything else is easy, man.
Cool. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Now, what's man? It's like human. Human beings, like our species, like the more you kind of like again kind of step into that self-awareness, man, like there's so much, man. It's so fascinating to me. So in regards to fear, okay, let's you can, however you want to take it. It can be in that intimate relationship. It can kind of just be, generally speaking, day-to-day life,
right.
just you living Beau. But what's one of those greatest fears that you continually have to, overcome, deal with, and break through, so that you can continue to move forward and being the most powerful version of yourself?
Absolutely. I got two that show up at the same time.
Okay.
Simultaneously. So the fear of failure, right? Just kind of like, normal-ish, I guess, for myself. What's interesting, what comes after that is the fear of success, which for some reason blows my mind. It's like, I want to be successful.
Right.
I like being successful. But when it shows up, so for instance, the DIY network stuff,
Yeah.
I was like, I was freaking out, like, okay, like I'm going to be on TV. People are going to see me for who I am, like I was afraid to be kind of vulnerable, right? But, and feeling like I've taken on more than I'm like, oh, I'm not capable enough to do this. I don't know any of this, and blah, blah, blah. And like, the truth is I am capable.
Absolutely.
I'm there. I made it there. I made this happen. Like I wouldn't be here out of an accident.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think on a daily, basis, it's like fear of failure, fear of success, and fear of hurting somebody. Those are the three big ones.
Yeah. That's fascinating, man. Especially when, and however you want to look at success, but in the terms of kind of like the world and things like that, you've had success. So it's just fascinating and interesting.
Right.
It's not just you, but just human beings. Like it's interesting how we can have some sort of success in our lives in regards to like what other people view as success, what we view as success, but then those fears of like, failure, the fear of success, like it's still there. Like it's so fascinating how, again, as human beings, like we have these fears and we have these anxieties, and like it's a continual battle, you know what I mean? So man, that's interesting. Now, to kind of wrap up the conversational warm up here, do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast? And if you're not necessarily in a podcast, maybe there's a YouTube channel, something that you really enjoy listening to.
Sure. Yeah, the podcast that I've been listening to here in the past, I think, month and a half, is a podcast done by a group of men called Sacred Sons. Sacred Sons? Right.
Okay. Cool. Now, kind of what is the kind of the gist of that podcast?
Well, they're talking about what you and I are talking about.
Okay.
Men becoming embodied and showing up in the world.
Okay.
As a balanced masculine and feminine, and not living out of fear and depressive states and things like this.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
They are basically an online men's group.
Okay.
I'm part of.
Sweet.
It's just like brotherhood. And just like, they're talking about all these things.
Good,
it's
man.
Great.
Good.
It's great.
So we're kind of stepping into a version of Sacred Sons then today, huh?
Maybe so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I like it, man. That's good. That's good. Okay, so let's kind of just take a step back in the sense of I would love to kind of just hear about your upbringing, that backstory. So if you don't mind sharing with myself and the listeners, Beau, where did you grow up? Kind of what did those earlier years look like? Were you involved in sports? Were you involved in extracurricular activities? Were you outside a lot? Was it video games? Just kind of give us a little snapshot of the younger years and kind of maybe into high school. And then once we get to that point, we'll just kind of move on to post high school and then where you're at today. So
Sure. Yeah, so I was born in Jacksonville, Orange Park, Florida.
Okay.
I was raised predominantly most of my childhood and into my teen years in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh,
so
okay.
Northern Alabama.
Wow, okay.
Hour and 15 or 20 from Nashville.
Okay.
South of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and growing up, I mean, it was baseball, football,
Okay.
basketball.
Cool. Yeah.
And, you know, just, I think my elementary years, it was just being outside. And
Yeah,
like,
okay.
doing that stuff. And
Awesome, yeah.
not a care in the world. I wasn't really allowed to, like, stay inside and, like, play video games and stuff.
That's
you
good,
know?
man. Yeah.
Like, which when I was younger, I was like bummed out.
Of
about it. I
course.
was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, kid across the street, dude, he's got like snacks all the time.
Yeah.
He's got the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And like, I gotta be outside.
And you've got to be outside using your
Yeah.
body and your mind and
Yeah.
being creative, right?
Which now I can't like sit inside for more than a couple hours.
I'm right
like,
with you,
sleeping
man.
is
Yep.
even like too much. And like I gotta go.
For sure.
You know?
I hear you. Yeah.
But yeah, and then into like, you know, into high school, I was never. So like, I'm pretty intelligent, but I was never like into doing school.
Yeah?
Like in middle school, you know, like I just didn't.
What was it
wanna be-
boring for you? Did you find it
I was
boring?
bored
or?
out of my
Okay.
mind.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, they tested me. I think I got tested twice to be put into like a, I guess, special ed.
Yeah.
What they called it back then.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
They like the IQ test. They're like, oh, he's fine. He just doesn't want to do it. We don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Uninterested. Boring, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I was, you know, playing ball, and you know, I got into skateboarding.
Okay,
I skated
cool.
a lot. You know, so I did that every day.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, kind of started getting into that culture, middle school.
Okay.
Skate culture, and there wasn't even a skate park when I was growing up. There was a handful of people who skated,
Okay.
and I remember in high school, transferring into high school, I think maybe the summer between 8th and 9th grade or whatever, a skate park opened.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
And so it was just like everybody was showing up, all these new faces, and then from there I started getting into like punk music.
Okay.
Punk rock.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I got a guitar.
Okay.
And started being in punk bands, and then I just started playing music.
Okay.
Right. High school, I was in high school, like actually in high school for like 2 years.
Okay.
And then I was able to enroll in this program. It's like, it's basically homeschool, but you go to class once a week, take the test, and you're testing out everything.
Perfect. Yep.
basically.
Yep.
Because I was just ready to like go to college, you know, I was going to try to go to college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get it out of the way.
Okay.
So I did that, graduated a year early, and started community college. And in community college, you know, I was just there for like one semester. I was
Right.
like, man, like, I was playing a lot of music at the time, and like tour was about to happen.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
That was my goal, you know. I'd like to go travel, and like, you know,
Yeah.
I grew up in Alabama. I want to go out. I want to see
Absolutely.
California. You know,
SoCal,
and-
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there probably for a different reason. I was because of Venice Beach and all the muscle and
Sure, yeah,
fitness
yeah,
stuff. But
yeah.
Southern California, man, that's
And that's where my family like was originally from.
Oh, cool,
The
okay.
family I grew up with a lot. My mom's side of the family.
Okay, awesome.
Military,
Yep.
stationed, you know, 29 Palms.
Yep.
And lived in Monterey.
for
So I
sure.
heard about it growing
That's
up.
good, man.
So
Yeah.
it's their fault.
Blame the family
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
one, huh?
And yeah, so I was like, I just, you know, I finished that semester, and it was just like, yeah, that's it. I think I'm done. You know, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Even at that age, I was like, I'm not gonna, you know, go get a loan for thousands of dollars to go into finance or
Right,
something,
yeah,
or become
yeah.
an engineer. Like, yeah, like I could probably do it, but like I just don't feel like
Yeah.
every time I'm here, I want to be not here.
For sure. Yeah.
just the same with school
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
growing up. And and just so I started just being in bands and just like really playing music, and that's what I did. And then I started, getting into that punk scene, and it wasn't that punk scene. There was this like kind of activist punk scene, right? It was very environmentally aware and all this stuff, and I got very into that. I started hitchhiking across the country, made it to Portland and
Cool,
down,
yeah,
and then back, and then all this stuff, and started really getting into the environment and hanging out with these activist types, right? They're very, very angry, very pissed off.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And I just like was doing construction in between playing music.
Okay.
And I dug it. I was like, I started out roofing.
Yeah,
in Alabama, and I just kind of kept doing it, right? And then comes this environmental awareness that's showing up, my own awareness of, hey, things are like getting kind of bad, right?
Yeah.
Worse than they told me in school in Alabama.
Right.
And so, because I had skill, like some hands-on working skill, and I just started searching out like this green building, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And I found like just natural building, like back to the landers, hippies out in the middle of nowhere, like building naked and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, that's awesome, right? And then through that research, I found this company in Taos, New Mexico. They call it Earthship Biotech.
Okay.
And I did an internship with them. I went to where was I? Somewhere in Wyoming, Buffalo, Wyoming.
Okay.
And I went to Guatemala.
Cool. Okay.
And they're like just building these off-grid homes, and it's all these just like activist, hippie, like forward-thinking people. I was surrounded by like 40 of them at a time, for a month straight or whatever. And so that's like around like 22.
Okay.
Right, 23. And I'm just starting to like, okay, like I got to do something, in my life. I have to have some sort of direction.
Yeah,
There's music, and that's cool, and I love it, and I love playing shows, and I love being on tour, and I did that for quite some time. And then I remember like playing a show around age 27, and like saw this drummer. This band was really good. I mean, they were a big band.
Yeah.
This drummer was like, had to be like 56, man. And he was not having a good time. He did not look healthy.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to do that. I got to have a career.
Something more.
Trade,
yeah.
right?
For sure. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I just started getting into natural building and stuff like that, and off-grid building. And,
okay.
That was like really the beginning of everything.
Okay. So before we
Sorry.
really no you're good, man. You're good. I want to unpack a few things before we get into kind of where you're at today. So I want to take a kind of a big step back, kind of like when you were when you started getting into like the skateboarding scene, okay, and then you mentioned kind of like the punk rock and everything.
Yeah.
Now, what was when you started getting into, because you mentioned playing sports and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, once you got into the skateboarding and you got into kind of like the punk rock and got your guitar and all that, did the athletics, did that kind of fall to the wayside, or did you continue to play sports up to like your senior year in high school?
It absolutely fell to the wayside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I played sports and stuff through into 8th grade.
Okay.
Basically, and then once high school hit, I was like,
okay.
Mohawk, skateboards.
Right.
That's
For
what I
sure.
was doing. In high school, I was in ROTC for like the first year.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah.
I come again from a military family, so it's just like a thing to do, right? And I think at some point in time where the sports stopped and the skateboarding and the punk rock and all that came into play, there's some sort of, maybe it's just puberty, rebellion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nope. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Right.
And it's interesting when you're that age and, there's like this perceived enemy. Right. And it's your parents.
Right.
Or whatever. And that's not real.
Right. So okay. So I want to continue just to kind of step behind the curtain of this, because I feel like as we continue to move forward with your story, this is kind of like the start of who you spent a lot of your life being and becoming. Right. So now, in regards to kind of like your parents, and you've mentioned kind of the military stuff with spread throughout family members, did you grow up in like a very disciplined home?
Not, I mean, you know, so there was like discipline and
right.
chores and there were rules, right?
Okay, yeah.
But when I say military family, I'm just, they were like military but retired already, right?
Oh,
and they
okay,
were like
okay.
You know,
boot
camp was over, all
right,
that was done,
right,
you know, and there was no force of me to go into the military.
Right,
arms.
okay.
And they were very loving, and like I had like a cool childhood. It was fun.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. Okay, so now, we're stepping in. We're in high school. We're stepping into the skateboarding. We're stepping into the punk rock. You talked about the mohawk and all that. Kind of like this switch over into kind of this rebellion.
Right.
So in high school, did you completely just consume yourself kind of in that rebellion, and did that really play a big part of those teen years for you, or not per se?
Yeah, I went, it was like swan diving.
Yeah.
I was full all the way in. Like, here it goes.
Right.
This is the path or whatever I'm taking.
Yeah.
You know, I want to, you know, these people are cool and like, they don't fit in, but they're cool, and like I had this perception in my mind of like not fitting in.
Right.
And looking back on it, like I totally did. I was just, you know, I was like playing ball.
Of course,
you know, and it's interesting, you know, like there's no event that I can remember around 14, 15, 16. You know? It wasn't until like age 18, right after high school, is when like the rebellion and the anger started. Right?
Okay.
I lost a family member. She was murdered. Basically, it was a gnarly story.
Yeah.
And it was just out of the blue. It was really extreme. Like, and after that is when like I was like, fuck it.
Yeah. Something snapped.
Yeah.
You
know, because I just didn't know how to deal. You know.
Right. we don't when we're 18 years old. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I barely knew how to like take care of myself.
Of course.
Any sort of like trauma, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I think that it was like there was like that teenage rebellion, and then at the time I was, I guess, supposed to be kind of coming out of it. Like something else happened, so I stayed in it. You know, amplified.
Right.
And that's why I was attracted at that point still. You know, because prior to that, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to college and like, you know, follow in the family footsteps of becoming, you know, an electrical engineer or whatever. And like that time in my life, I remember being like, screw it. Like, I'm gonna go do what I want to do. Life is short.
Right.
It's like what kept showing up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going.
Yeah.
All in.
so before the tragic event with the family member, what was kind of like the one thing that you really struggled with in those teen years?
Honestly, I think it was like being noticed by a girl.
Yeah.
Or women in general. You know, like,
I think that's for a lot of us. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, deep down, that's still around.
Right.
You know, like I'm 33 years old. I was like,
I'm 32, man.
You know?
It's still a real thing, man.
You know,
it's still a real thing.
Does she think I'm cool?
Yeah.
I still feel like that, right? But it was like, just like, you know, like, well, I was tall back then. You know, people who can't see me, I'm 6'7".
Yeah.
In ninth grade, I was 6'5". You know, right?
Yeah,
so like,
for sure. That's pretty tall, dude.
I was just towering over everybody.
Yeah.
You know? And skateboarding wasn't that cool yet. You know? Like Tony Hawk hadn't done the 900.
Yeah, I remember those days. That was big time, man. Yeah.
And I just, you know, I kind of like would feel like I didn't fit in, and then like chicks weren't attracted to me or I couldn't get their attention, and I kind of just rolled with it. It's like, okay, if that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be.
Okay.
You know, And I kind of developed that story in my
Yeah.
mind and told myself that story over and over again
Yeah.
for a long time.
For sure.
And yeah, it's just really interesting that the stuff that happens in like middle school and high school, that's like kind of like, oh, whatever. I'm still like, you know, my 30s, like just realizing it's happening.
Absolutely, man.
Like, are you kidding me?
It's because we've programmed our minds to believe that stuff, man. And that's the thing. Like you use the word story, and that's something. 2019 for me personally, Beau, has been such a breakthrough year in a lot of different areas. But it's just like I've really realized, Quentin, you are producing in your life the outcome of your life is from the stories that you've been telling yourself since you were a little kid.
Right.
And it all starts with our mind. That's why I got like inside, I got really excited when you right away you're saying, hey, I've got these mantras that I start every day with. And I try to, repeat them 108 times because, dude, like just this year, Beau, like I've realized again, the outcomes of my life, the results of my life up to this point, 99.9% of that, it's on me. It's on my mindset. It's on the words that I'm telling myself, the stories I'm telling myself, the words that I'm speaking out loud. It all manifests, man. You know what I mean? So I'm right with you. It's like, it is so fascinating how we can look back as I've kind of like realized some of this stuff this year specifically. It's like, I look back, I'm like, okay, like there's kind of the general area where, I started telling myself that story and that story and that story, and all these manifestations in my life come from not anybody else but myself.
Right.
Like the power is within us. Like we can create the life that we want to create. Right. And it all starts with our mindset and the stories and the words that we are telling ourselves and speaking to ourselves. So it's just powerful, profound
and then
stuff.
You realize like, oh, like I'm actually that powerful.
Yeah.
And I can literally do anything that I want.
Absolutely, man.
And there's no excuse anymore now.
There's not.
Except for just me stopping myself.
For sure. Right? Yeah. Cool. Okay, so I want to touch on one more thing in regards to kind of like you stepping into this. I'll just call it kind of this rebellious phase or
that absolutely is what it is.
Yeah. Because I like even before we turned on the microphone, I said I'm a rebel. Like that's the spirit inside of me. But as you were kind of stepping into this and stuff, and with the skateboarding scene and the band scene. Were drugs then also kind of a part of that scene, and that play into some of those younger years for you as well, or not?
I actually, didn't drink or smoke pot.
Okay.
Like from the age 20 up until probably 28.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay. Yeah,
and there's a reason behind that, and as well with that family trauma. There's another one. It was my stepdad. Who was, very into alcohol, binge, right?
Yeah.
And prescription and whatever, And it was always like, I don't want to become that, right?
Interesting, yeah.
And it wasn't, but there's no room for what do I want to become, who I want, right?
Right, okay.
So
that's because as soon as you started saying like skateboarding and band, like that's why I asked you, like the drug thing immediately popped up because. That's so obviously you were exposed to the drugs and the alcohol and stuff. Like 100%. it was all around you. So when you were in that though, and like your bandmates and friends are, kind of like, diving into all that. Yeah. I mean, it's just interesting how you on some level had a foundation where like, hey, you know what? Like that's not me. Because you were exposed to that through a family member and stuff. But did that do anything for you when everybody else is kind of like partying in the sense of the drugs and stuff, and then you're kind of like again kind of the oddball out over here? Did that cause anything internally or not? Really?
I think so. And just now, like in you saying that, it's just like I was just continuing that story,
right?
In a way,
to
be different, to make myself different, to make myself stand apart. At the same time, I felt like I started to recluse a lot. Right. I was the only child. I guess I should have said that in the beginning. So I can hang out with myself.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Be my own deal. Right. And that helped kind of perpetuate that. Right?
Okay.
And I was still very social, and I like to hang out. And
of course,
But I could feel myself like just kind of zoning out, and like it was interesting.
Yeah.
How that still comes into play. I catch it in my life now. But it was this other thing where like they're all and like the people I was like playing music with in like a successful band, like people like drink and stuff, but it's like they're not into hard drugs, because that's how you stay successful, right?
Of course, right.
But it was always around, when anything was always around.
Of course,
and, like, you kind of just, that's like an extreme, and the other extreme is just like not doing any of it, not being a part of it, like.
Yeah.
And so I was still addicted just to being alone or not being seen. Or whatever story I was creating. It was interesting.
So you were kind of just the terminology that's popping up in my mind right now. You were kind of like the oddball of the oddballs. Like you were like,
right.
I mean, you were like in this group of like rebellious people that's kind of like, hey, screw everything and everybody and all that. And then you were like the extreme of it, right? I mean, as you kind of look at it and examine.
Right. And I took, growing up around, because I really grew up around that. Like that's the lessons I learned and stuff.
Yeah.
From that age, it's really like these adopted belief systems of like, capitalism sucks, fuck the man, they're trying to hurt us, whatever, right?
Right.
But I wasn't like high or drunk, so I was like taking this on as truth and being really extreme and really militant about it.
Yeah.
So here comes that like military structure, like I'm standing up for what I believe in, kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
Man,
it was it got weird. It all got really weird, and then it exploded.
So before we kind of move into again, like where you're at today, and kind of I really want to unpack kind of like you mentioned earlier, kind of like the 27, 28, you got married and stuff like that. But before that, because music, I mean, from my perspective, music is one of the most powerful, I don't know how really to word it, but it's one of the most powerful entities, one of the most powerful things in the universe. Like music is so powerful. So for you specifically, Beau, what does music mean to you, and what has music done for you?
Oh man, music. It was, I think, first of all, it was an escape and an outlet when I was younger.
Yeah.
And hence the protesty, angry nature of punk rock.
Right.
But it's also something, that style of music was very obtainable to me. Like I could sort of create that sound. Right? It's very easy. And then I started like really, becoming artistic about it, really starting to like learn how to create and write and like have a kind of a like vision and really put it out there and like work on it and make this sound, and it really helped me like work hard on how to be creative and to be creative and try to be successful at being creative, right? And not have the 9 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it helped with my like self-esteem, getting up on stage in front of 400 people is fucking scary.
Yeah.
It's still scary to me, and like with music, it's like that's like true. That's the easiest way to be vulnerable is to write and play music. Right? So it's very accepted.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that was like the stepping stone of me like really being cool with who I am. And then eventually learning actually who I am.
Yeah.
But that was like, and just to be like writing with your bros, you're like playing music and like you're up on stage and like you get to that one part or whatever and just like you unload it on the crowd and everybody's losing it, just like everybody's connected and like feeling it, and it's just like I almost can't even put it into words.
Right.
And around 27, 28, I stopped playing music. Yeah.
So let's go there, man, because you used the word earlier. This explosion happened in your life. So, I mean, you're the man of vulnerability, because that's kind of like that's your jam and everything. So, and obviously I know there's different things that we're not going to put out in the universe on certain platforms or in certain situations. But so as much as you are willing to share or want to share, you mentioned we've already talked about the 27, 28. We mentioned the marriage. So and then it's interesting, because then we've also been talking about these stories, and like in high school, it's like I asked you like what was like kind of your one struggle or something that you kind of had to deal with, and it's like, hey man, I think it's like just wanting like girls to think I'm attractive and all that stuff.
Right.
So you get married. Obviously, somebody found you attractive and all of that stuff. But once you kind of like leaned into that, okay, what was marriage like for you? What was that experience like for you? Did you like really kind of realize like, oh, like love is a real thing? Like just kind of unpack kind of that time of life for you, that experience, and then maybe just start sharing a little bit about the explosion. And it feels like, as you were talking in the beginning of our conversation, that was a huge turning point in your life. So however you want to share that, however you want to take that, I would just love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so me and my ex-wife got married when we were 20.
Okay.
Right? So babies, right?
Absolutely.
20 is like right after that 18, 19 area when there's, my aunt was murdered.
Yeah.
And my stepdad had killed himself. Right? So there was just like a lot that I didn't deal with, right? Again, not knowing how to deal. Then got married, right? And that's not to say that I was not in love with my ex-wife, and I still love her.
Yeah.
It was such a crazy time. Right? And within that partnership with my ex-wife, we really like taught each other how to grow and like be adults and stuff. We were guides for each other,
right?
Kind of like in that time, you know? And I'm very grateful for it, right? But in that time, the majority of my 20s, like I was very pissed off, and it was more like a suppressed anger, suppressed anxiety, right? Of, kind of having to figure things out on my own. I tried to become an adult too quick without the foundation of being an adult.
Right,
I had no idea. And
sure.
I think that's rather normal, you know? And I think, I was just focusing a lot on the negatives in life. All the bad things that were happening around the world and all this stuff. That was my like go-to kind of conversation piece. But really what was happening there, and looking back on it, it was just like I wasn't like dealing with these things that happened, and they weren't necessarily things that happened to me, but there were big events in my life that affected my family greatly, and therefore I'm a part of my family, affected me greatly as well.
For sure.
And I just kind of bailed after that. Just got married and started traveling, and leaving and going on tour and going out to New Mexico and all this stuff. And I was just really resistant to like everything. And I was resistant to my partner at the time, my ex-wife, and there wasn't a lot of like public display of affection and stuff like this, it was interesting, right? And right around 27, 28, it just like, I remember when we were coming out to Denver, we decided to move to Denver. And I was like, something big's gonna happen. I could feel it, it was like this very positive thing. And it did. I went to do a job in northern British Columbia. And that's when divorce started, like right after I moved to Denver, right? So it was this huge change that showed up. And that explosion in me started happening, when divorce was something that was going to happen, and my ex-wife asked for a divorce from me, and I was like, why, like I couldn't comprehend why, you know. I was very attached to my ex-wife, right? I guess codependent, right?
For sure.
The term that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And if I've ever been codependent, that was it for sure,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I started realizing just like, it was almost that day, like, wow, like, what have I done? Kind of like, it was like, there was like a lot of guilt and shame there. Like, what have I done? Like, I never dealt with the stuff that happened
Right.
back in the day.
Right.
And I've been just like projecting that onto everything and everybody, you know, just like full on, you know, all this, you know, it's not that the passion wasn't there about like making change in the world and building these structures and all this stuff, but it's almost partly a disguise for like not dealing with my shit.
Right.
So because I was like outwardly like, yeah, like the, you know, oil and natural gas and the man again.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, all this stuff, like, fuck you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But it was all just like my suppressed like anger and sadness just like being thrown out all over this work that I was really passionate about, really believed in. But
Yeah.
just behind it was like this suppression of myself, right? And when I started to realize that, I really start to like the beginnings of an awakening process of like digging deep and stuff, and like just everything started to come up, everything that I haven't dealt with, that I've never asked myself. And it was a crazy time for like probably a year and a half. I was just like, everything was new again, and like I had, you know, done some heavy medicine trips as a result, right? And it really opened me up, and like, you know, was like feeling all these new things and hearing all these new things and reading all these new books and, you know, like getting all this new information.
Yeah.
Because I just, whether intentionally or unintentionally, had the rug pulled out from underneath me and was given the gift of being able to start completely over. You know, with the knowledge that I had, right? And I think that's like a total gift, you know? And with that, and really like diving into like vulnerability and all these things that we talked about, like my whole life completely changed, like on a dime in an instant, you know, complete 180. It was like all this new stuff started showing up as soon as I started to release certain parts of traumas and story, like something new would show up. Like, oh, hey, like you wrote a proposal for this like sustainability speaking engagement. Well, you got it.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, okay, so now I gotta go speak at this thing. Okay, so then I wrote another one, and I wrote another one. I kept getting accepted. Right?
Yeah.
And I eventually wrote this paper about sustainable design. Right? And that was about 28, 29.
Okay.
I got accepted to speak at some sustainability conferences in Europe. Right. So here comes Ernest Hemingway again.
Yeah. I like it.
And like all this stuff starts connecting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like one thing after another. And yeah, I got a paper published, right? And like I'm 28 years old, you know, speaking in Washington, D.C., in front of these like government officials. I have basically dropped out of college.
Right.
And it's just blowing my mind, man. And just, I start Gypsy building, you know, around 28.
Yeah.
And I just start getting work. It's just coming in, you know, and it's like, wow, this love and light and this like just surrendering and really owning who we are opens up so much, and it continuously opens up so much. It's just sometimes I can't even wrap my head around the whole concept of it. But again, it's just like I keep coming back to vulnerability and then like surrendering and like trying to learn who you are, right, or who I am. And in doing so, I've been like rewarded every time. And eventually that TV show shows up.
Right, yeah.
It's that explosion, what seemed like at the time, like the day of, like this horrible, like depressing, gnarly situation, like never been so lonely in my life.
Right.
Kind of feeling turned into like, I don't know, me being on this podcast. Man.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
It is. Now, when you say surrender or you're surrendering,
right.
that word, you
Sure.
can use that in different ways to kind of describe different experiences or different things. But for
Right.
you personally, Beau, when you say I had to surrender or I'm surrendering, what does that invoke inside of you? What does that invoke within your life?
So surrender for me, I think it goes interchangeably with vulnerability, but when I surrender to something, like let's say I'm having a feeling or there's a thought coming up that I don't want to have.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like just like nope, I'm like, okay, here it is. Like I'm gonna feel it.
Okay.
I don't want to bottle it up. I've seen that explosion.
Right. Right.
Like just like let it happen, man. Like no shame, no guilt. Work on that.
Yeah.
And just surrendering to the moment. I think, okay, like this is what's happening right now, and it's cool. Even if it's not cool, it's cool.
I got you. Yeah.
Like you're gonna make it through it if it's hard, and then also surrendering to like somebody giving you a compliment on being attractive, right? So I talk about wanting women to be attracted to me when I was in high school.
Right.
When I'm given a compliment of being attractive, I'm like,
You're like a little boy, right?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm really tall or whatever, And then like surrendering to that is like thank you. Thank you for saying that. Like, and believing like that this person thinks that I'm attractive. And then like going in the mirror and being like surrendering to myself, like I'm attractive. I'm a good looking man.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a loaded word for me, I think, but I think that's the essence of it for me.
Okay.
It's like just like giving in and not resisting, like I've done for so long.
Yeah. Does it tie in, Beau, with like presence, like just kind of like being in that moment, experiencing the presence of right here and right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So surrendering to the fact, just full transparency right now, right? Is like, so what if I'm rambling? I'm showing up with it.
Right, yeah.
That's what I do, I guess.
Yeah.
Surrendering to, like, you asking me questions and me maybe not having the answer. Maybe.
Yeah.
And, like, being cool with that.
Right.
There's a reason I don't have the answer, because I haven't
good.
answered it, and maybe I should answer it and try to find,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I want you to kind of just break down, like, because we've obviously, you, like I mentioned in the beginning, you're the founder of Gypsy Build. You had just kind of mentioned that as you were unpacking a few things a moment ago. You've kind of alluded to some of these different things, and the sustainability and all that type of stuff. For me personally, like I understand on a very basic level, kind of like what you're talking about, but I don't understand a lot of it. I'm sure there's probably going to be a lot of people listening to this episode that are kind of like, what does he do? What's Gypsy Build? What's the sustainability thing? So I just kind of want you for a moment to kind of geek out on that.
Sure.
Kind of just clarify things, explain things, kind of just make it very clear what Gypsy Build is. You kind of mentioned being on the DIY network. Kind of just like really fully give us kind of that picture of like, how you became who you are today in the sense of like, the being a professional. You talked about the paper being published and all that. So let's just completely, expound on like where you're at today.
Yeah. So like a deep dive into Gypsy Build is, hopefully don't go off on a whole thing here. So like, if
you do, it's okay, man, right? It's all good. Surrender to it. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good, man.
So I talk about New Mexico and I talk about Earthships, right?
Yeah.
Now, that was the first company that I worked for where I really saw like any sort of like off-grid or alternative building.
Now, what do you mean by off-grid or alternative building? Just for my sake and the listeners.
Right. So off-grid or off the grid or autonomous from the utility.
Okay.
Company, whatever.
Okay.
So
I see.
It's
okay.
relying off of whether it's solar or wind for power.
Perfect.
Rainwater collection or a well, but specifically rainwater collection. And it's really something that survives on its own.
Perfect.
It sustains itself, right?
Okay.
With input just from the natural world.
Perfect.
Is the goal. Right?
Okay.
Some places, some of that stuff's illegal. Some of it's legal. Depends on where you're at.
Okay.
And then from working for that company and getting into, how those houses were constructed, there's a lot of natural materials that are being used to build.
Perfect.
Earth,
okay.
Adobe plaster, clay plaster, lime plaster, Adobe floors, and recycled materials and stuff that's being pulled out of garbage dumps and all this stuff that's just being tossed, right? And coming from just working in conventional construction, through those times of me not being on tour,
right.
I'm like seeing this, I'm like, oh man, there's just like so much waste on these jobs that I've done, and like we've filled 10 dumpsters on one job and then on all of this stuff, and that plus that environmental activist hanging out with those types and then really pissed off, like I was there, exactly where I needed to be, right? And I worked for them for a few years, and I just kind of went off on my own, right? And started getting into so there's like Earthship, like that's like a type of structure, right? It's built out of like rammed earth tires, right? So the house is built out of tires. And
wow.
It's it's like this own style of building.
Okay.
Right? Developed in the Southwest. And then I started like really getting into like what else is there? Because maybe this isn't an answer for everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting into like earth bag, right? Which is like basically rice bag filled with earth, tamped, turned into a big Adobe block, basically. And then straw bale building and cob building, and then really into like conventional green building, right? So I'm going and like doing all these different types of projects, right? Just to keep learning.
Yeah.
And Gypsy Build hasn't started yet.
Okay.
And within a matter of a few years, I'd been on like something like 22 projects.
Wow.
That were off the grid and natural, out in the middle of nowhere somewhere. It was Canada, Wyoming, New York State, Florida, like whatever. And so I sort of just started to like network and know a lot of people. I've been on all these projects and crossed paths, and there's turned out to be this whole network of like natural builders now.
Right.
And I had met somebody at an earth bag workshop, and her name was Taffleen, excuse me, and she was just like this totally cool like writer, editor chick. Yeah. And she was just there like documenting it, right? And we kept in touch, and one day I like posted something on Instagram, I was in another place building another thing out of some garbage or whatever, and she was like, "Oh, you're such a gypsy tech." Because I like to design too.
Of course.
I was like, oh, that's cute or whatever. And then then it come time for me to like work in society, right? Like I needed an LLC, I needed insurance, I needed to be professional, right? Like I had to wear shoes at work, and I was like, gypsy tech is cool, but like I'm not an architect.
Right.
Put that in the mix. That feels like maybe there's like an illegal thing there.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a builder, right? Traveling builder. Gypsy build. It was like sort of like the statement, like
love it.
Build Gypsy build, like keep working. This affirmation, and I started that LLC just to I had to start paying taxes.
Of course, right.
It's been like a long time, and then I started it, and I was like, oh, okay, man, like this is cool, And then I'm starting to take on larger projects and like in counties where there are rules and building codes and laws, and I'm having to navigate all this stuff. And I have all this knowledge and this experience, and I'm like I don't know how this is gonna go, but we'll see. And as soon as just a little bit of like Instagram and Facebook promotion, it was like boom, 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 boom. I was booked.
Yeah.
Like, hey, come here. Hey, we need help here. And I was pretty like lenient with. I wouldn't make people sign contracts for like 6 months or an entire bill. I was like, hey, 2 weeks. This is how much it is. A month. This is how much it is. This is how much it costs to travel. I'll sleep in a tent.
Yeah.
Like I got a nice one, and
yeah.
I'll be there. Here we go. And yeah, so I just started to learn and like started, running job site. And I started like designing and running the job site. And while I was on these projects, I'm like, they got some design off of YouTube or something.
Right. Pinterest maybe?
Yeah. I'm like, okay, like this is how much that's going to cost.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can reclaim. Let's knock that cost down. So,
cool.
Because your budget's only $20,000 and what you want is $200,000.
Right.
So we got a deal, right? And yeah, I've just been traveling and building. I've been consistently traveling since the age of 18,
right,
up until like 2 years ago. So it's been a trip, and with the work, like just like designing somebody's house from scratch, from like literal scratch, right, out of earth. They come to me because they want a structure built out of like earth and recycled materials, and it's just like it's blowing my mind, And this point, Gypsy has been around for a couple of years, like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And that's around like the mark of like either you're gonna keep being a business or you're gonna stop and go work at a restaurant or whatever.
Right.
Pay off
Yeah.
the debt, right?
Of course.
And,
Yeah.
And I did acquire some debt from some traveling and stuff, but like I was on this straw bale project in Prescott is how they pronounce it, in Arizona.
Okay.
And I was about to fly back to Denver and then go to the Philippines to hang out with my girlfriend, but she was in Southeast Asia. And before I went on that project in Arizona, I went to New Mexico, where I used to live, and I bought a piece of property.
Okay.
A quarter acre for $1,000. No water, no power, no road, nothing.
Yeah, just raw. Yeah.
And I like presented it to her when we were in the Philippines, or before I went to the Philippines, right? And like a couple of days before I left for the Philippines, that's when I got an email from DIY Network. I was like, how'd you guys even get hold of me? I don't know. I still don't know. Right?
Yeah.
And that's when the TV show showed up. And how I got there was just consistent, diligent work and staying true to my values and in alignment with those values, and not, even really bending or straying. Just like, this is what it is. Like, I know this in my heart and in my stomach. Like, this is the project that I want to do. This is not the project. I'm not going to build with conventional materials, at that point in time. I'm not going to do it. This is what I'm doing, and through that, a lot showed up,
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. So.
Okay. So now I want to go in some different directions on some different things, but I kind of want to finish up just like kind of the Gypsy build and this aspect of your life. So you mentioned you've been traveling, whether it's because of the band and now the work that you're involved in since you were like 18, 19 years old, up until the last couple of years. Right. So what is the reason why maybe you're not traveling as much, and what has that meant for you, to you, and then how have you been able to transition out of kind of being that gypsy to maybe a little bit more grounded in one specific place or area?
Right. So like the inner work type of stuff.
Okay.
Like traveling, right? Turns out that I was trying to run away consistently from when I was 18.
Yep. Yeah.
And what was I trying to run away from? I was trying to run away from myself, and that doesn't work.
It doesn't.
At all.
We go to sleep with ourselves every night, man. So,
right?
yeah.
And these past couple of years, it was really after that TV show, right? Like I did that TV show. I was out there working 10, 15-hour days for like 6 months straight. You know, just like trying to meet deadlines. I had no money. Like it was intense, right? And I really was stressed out, you know. And I was like, okay, like after this, like I really need to ground, like really ground, and like really, you know, like just try it. Because I'm so scared of complacency, right? So I think it's like this. It's gonna ruin me or something.
Me too, man.
You know? And with that in mind, like I came back. I was just like, okay, like I need to like. I just want to try to like just be in one place for like a couple of years. You know, because prior to that, I had been in one place for more than 6 months.
Right.
For like almost a decade. Right.
Yeah.
And it's been cool. It's been interesting. Right. So I thought I had like a really firm grasp on realities and rules and like this is how you operate in the world, right? But turns out I knew how to navigate an airport in another country better than I knew how to navigate like going to the grocery store or something, right? Just very simple stuff and like parking tickets and like having to have truck insurance, you know, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And but also the other part is being able to like making myself kind of sit still and like really cultivate everything, right? And like, okay, like now where do I want Gypsy Build to go? Like what's the actual goal? Because there's the like the value, like I have values. There's the values goal, but that's not a goal. That's a value.
Right.
What's the goal? Right? Is there a 5-year plan? Is there a 10-year plan? Do I want to be swinging a hammer until I'm 60? You know, turns out the answer is yes, but not for 40 hours a week.
Right.
Right.
You don't want to you don't want to be the 60-year-old dude in the band. Kind of going back to that earlier observation in your life.
Absolutely. Because I see that in 60-year-old carpenters.
Right.
Who are
of course.
Totally pissed off.
Of course.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, like, so I had this experience. I had this knowledge. I've been on this show. I've wrote this paper on design. I obviously love design. You know, how can I actually, because one of my big things is to serve. I feel like that's my purpose in life, to serve.
Beautiful.
What does that actually mean, though? Just to say it, like, oh, I'm here to serve. I'm like, okay, no shit. Like, that's very vague.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
So I have to have, like, a purpose defined. What is it? Right. And within that, I'm like, okay, well, like, what is the biggest thing that I see within like natural building and you know, like residential sustainable regenerative design? What's the big problem there? Like, what is something that people need help with? Like, it's hard to save up $500,000, right? To hire a contractor to build your home. Especially if it's out of alternative materials and stuff, it's going to be more expensive. Right. Okay, so like, how can I help there? Like, yeah, I could show up and like I could design and build their whole house, you know, and hire a crew and do all that stuff. But that's like also like thousands of dollars. Right? And a lot of people that are coming to me, you know, a lot of my clientele they have a budget between, you know, $0 and like under $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my niche is basically the millennial generation of like, man, like rent is $1,500. I work 7 days a week, and like it's cool. You know, like my place is cool and Denver's cool, but like I like want to own my own place.
Right.
And I kind of want to build it. Like how do I do that? You know, and it's like, okay, like let's work on a design. You know, what's your idea? And I take their ideas, I take their budget, and I try to really, you know, put that on the paper and into a design software. And we go back and forth, like, do you like this? No. Do you like this? Yes. Okay. Cool. We settle on sort of a shape. Now I'm gonna bid it. You know, I'm gonna see how much this thing's gonna cost.
Yeah.
Your budget's $20,000. Okay, let's go. Earth is pretty much free, right? Dirt, you just got to pay for labor.
Yeah,
you pay for labor, and you want to build your house, then it's free. It's just going to take a while,
right?
And you got to work hard, right? And you know, like, so I'm talking about, like, you know, earth and material. I'm talking about, like, hey, this is where you can go to get windows at 1/10 of the cost, and they're still really good. They're not trash, you know.
Yeah.
And like, really, like, not cutting corners, but really finding affordable ways to house people and for people to house themselves, you know. And it's been amazing, man.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm dealing with people in our generation, you know. My demographic, like, I am part of that demographic, so I get it. You know, like $100 is a lot of money still, you know, right? Like,
to me,
that's
yeah, man.
$101 bills,
right?
You know?
Yeah,
and it takes X amount of hours to make that, right? So I'm very, like, emotionally invested in those projects. Because I always feel like I get you, you know, I get it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And the success rate of it has been, like, amazing.
Right.
And so it's like, sometimes, you know, usually they'll hire me to do the consulting and the design, you know, and it's a sliding scale, basically. Like, you know, this is the hourly cost of me, and, you know, I can cap it at 5 hours if you want. It's up to you.
Right.
You know, let me know, right? And then I can go through, like, there's going to be a project in 2021 with a client, and it's like a full design build.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really cool because I think her and her mother are going to be, like, they're really involved in, like, wanting to build this house.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
And it's so cool. And that's kind of where I'm at, right? Like, the, like, actual affordable housing, design, build, natural building, like, it's turned into this whole thing that I did not expect ever.
Right.
You know, I just expected to be running crews or whatever. I wasn't thinking.
Right.
And then I was like, you know, like, I want to, like, create this art, you know, and as much passion as I had in creating in music is, like, gone into these designs and into Gypsy build, you know. And that's kind of been the past couple of years, like, really honing in that craft of, like, you know, like, what's it going to look like? What can I actually produce? Because if I'm trying to provide a service that doesn't justify itself as being in existence, then it doesn't necessarily need to be there.
Right.
I'm okay with that. So that's kind of where I was. Like, let's see if this is needed. If it's needed, I'm going. You know?
Right.
If it's not needed, then I'll step back and kind of assess what I need to do then. But it turned out to, like, be something that's wanted, at least.
Right.
And it's, like, consistent, and it's crazy, and it's chaotic, and it's, like, it won't
It's
stop.
beautiful, though, too, right?
Oh, God,
it's
love
beautiful.
it. I love it.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot happened in, like, the past 2 or 3 years of just, like, the birthing of an idea to it, like, growing up, you know, into a full-blown 16-year-old or whatever.
Right,
it's, like,
yeah.
ready. And yeah, and now I'm going to be booked for the next, like, 5 years, you know. And then I have spots in between where I can still do design work and little projects, you know. Yeah.
It's so good, man. So now that you're kind of, you know, grounded here in the Denver area, this is kind of like a time for you to kind of just really do that do that and continue to do the deep inner work and just kind of prepare yourself for the next phase or the next season of life in regards
Right.
to Gypsy build and anything else that the world wants to present to you. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. And on that deep inner work piece, in my mind, success would have happened, but if that deep inner work wasn't there, like I wouldn't be able to accept
Absolutely.
success. I wouldn't be able to
Absolutely.
enjoy the success. I wouldn't even know it was there. I'd be on
Right,
to the next thing.
right.
That wasn't good enough. On to the next thing. And it's really like that deep inner work stuff is like really helping me celebrate
Yes.
my victories, man.
I like that.
You know, like, because I used to just like, next,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
it's over,
Yep.
next. But like, no, man, celebrate yourself, dude. Like, chill out, like, take a bath or whatever,
Right,
go out and get a
right.
drink, like, whatever. It's like
Yeah.
really celebrate a victory, you know? And that's kind of like what I've been working on. It's been like my main thing is like, really like realizing things that I've accomplished, you know, like, because I don't realize the things that I've accomplished or the things that I'm good at, then I'm going to see the negative. And I've already done that, man. It's such a bummer. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're an hour and 20 minutes in, man, and honestly, dude, we could sit here probably for another hour and 20, but I wanna wrap things up just to be respectful of your time and what you've got going on the rest of your day. But before we kind of completely wrap things up, I do want to touch on something that I believe I came across it on your Instagram, and it was feminine is divine. So I would love for you to just expound, explain, just share from your heart what feminine is divine means to you, and why you kind of put that out on your social media, why you put that out there for the world.
I love that that's what you saw. Like, you know, like out of all the junk I put up there, like that one, like the feminine in my life has always been a huge teacher. You know, and I was very resistant to it.
Right, of course.
You know, and that divine feminine, right? That embodied woman or the embodied feminine doesn't have to be a female.
Right,
You know?
of course.
And it's just such a powerful teacher and like a loving, embracing like energy, man. Like, and it's something that I strive for within myself. This like balance, right? As I feel, you know, very artsy and stuff, but also like from the deep south, and I used to play a lot of football too. I'm masculine, you know.
Of course.
And I'm like pissed and let's get in a fight and
Yeah,
like, whatever.
yeah.
So I'm like really trying to get to that like divine feminine, and it's not a goal or a destination necessarily, but it's like I think that is the beginning of all life. A female is a life giver, like, and I think with this, you know, men being vulnerable and doing this deep inner work, we're really starting to like show women and the feminine in general the respect that they deserve, and like how important that is to this world. Because the world right now is very masculine, right? In a lot of ways, or at least in this country,
right?
I could say
Specifically, the business world is very masculine.
You know, and very like jabby, cutthroat.
Absolutely.
Here's the answer. Here's the answer forever.
Yep.
There's no
Right.
room for evolution. Right? And I think really honoring and respecting and tapping into that divine feminine is one of the biggest things that we can do right now, to where we're going to see like huge change. You know, like, so like with like the natural building and sustainability, like we can go put solar panels on every roof, on every structure in this world by the end of Friday, but we'd still be left with our vices of like fear and scarcity mindset and you know, blame. You did this to me. I'm on this team, you're on that team, right? And when we start to like really balance and dive into the feminine, it's where it's like, oh, like we're not like 5-year-olds on the playground. Like it's like an ebb and flow, and like we're all connected. And love is a real thing. You know,
it is.
In that rant is like honoring the divine feminine. I think is a very important thing for me. Is working to like, you know, especially like with my partner, all women, but with my partner, like you are the giver of life. Like, holy shit, that's huge. Like, you are this like embodiment of Mother Earth. Like, you know, I dig it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sorry if I've ever been a dick. You know, and like, yeah, it really helps me tap in and own myself.
I love it, man. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, before I kind of go into some of the final kind of questions here, you are a man of many tattoos. So and being fully transparent, we kind of discussed this before we turned on the mic, but I was like, somehow you came across my eyes. I think it was on Facebook, you know, like suggested friends or something, and I saw this dude like all tatted up. I was like, before I even like clicked on your profile, I was like, dude, I want to have a conversation with this guy. And then, you know, then I clicked on your profile, I went to your Instagram, kind of dug in a little bit, but the tattoos kind of caught my eye because, you know, I have a few myself. I love tattoos. They've been a part of my life for a long time. They're a form of expression. But for you, what were you kind of like when you started getting tattoos and things like that, Beau, was that kind of like a part of that persona that you were trying to kind of put out into the world? Was it a part of that kind of that rebellious spirit and that culture that you were kind of involved in, or was it maybe something else?
You know, I think in the beginning, for sure, it was like I wanted to fit in with that kind of like punk rock culture. Also, it was like rebellious because like in the Deep South, you know, like tattoos were sin.
Right.
You know, and, which has changed quite a bit. At this
Of course.
But that's kind of like, you know, where I started from. It was like a rebellious kind of like thing, you know, rock and roll, whatever. And that's how it started. You know? And I just dug it. You know, I liked it. You know? It hurt. I'm not gonna even lie. Like, getting a tattoo hurts, man.
It hurts really bad, dude. People are always like, "Hey, does it hurt getting tattoos?" My response usually is like, "Dude, it doesn't feel good."
Yeah.
Especially when you get them like on the tops of your hands. Dude, like my hands got so swollen and like the blood. I'm just like, but you know.
You know, and it's when you bring up, so like I got tattoos on, like you, on the tops of my hands. I got tattoos all over my throat.
That's hardcore right there, man. Yeah, I could never do that.
And, you know, when you get it on your hands and your throat, like, you're committed.
Yeah, right.
Whatever you thought, it's over. Like, you got tattoos on your hands.
Right, yeah.
And then like oh, like that's a commitment to yourself, man. You just committed to yourself, like, this is what I'm gonna have forever. And I just kind of like kept just like getting them. And for a while there, definitely I feel like up until like 23 it was like rebellion for sure. And then after that I was like, oh, like I'm like trying to, we're like some of the only species on the planet that can like just augment change.
Right.
And like kind of like decorate ourselves. Man. That's cool.
It's beautiful. Like, I like it. I'm gonna
decorate myself. And then I think like around like 26, I would look in the mirror. It's like, oh shit, what did I do? Right. You know. So for a little time there, I was like, oh man, that was a bad idea. All this was a bad idea.
Right. And
afterwards, I was like, no, man, like I love this, dude. I got this art on my skin. I forget that's there. You know?
Same here, man. Like, somebody be like, I'll be like in Target or some random place. Hey, I like the tattoo on your right arm. I'm like, oh yeah, like right. You know, but you know what really gets me though, because like I come from a background that was pretty conservative, and like we're not getting tattoos, piercings. You know, we couldn't like bleach our hair when that was cool back in the 90s. All this different stuff, and so like. So kind of in that judgmental kind of like culture, I kind of grew up in that. So it's like, I'll look at somebody kind of like you that's got neck tattoos, and like I'll have like judgments, right? Sure. And then I'm like, I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh yeah. Like I've got tattoos on my hands. I've got a half sleeve. I'm like, oh dude. But again, it kind of goes back to like just just it's so interesting how us as humans, like we, all these thoughts, and it's like, we start judging, and then we're just like, oh yeah, but like I've done that, or it's just fascinating. But
judgment is just like this. It's part of that survival mechanism that we still.
Great point. Yeah.
Do I fit in? Do I not fit in? Or are they going to attack me? Kind of stuff.
Right.
It's just, doesn't necessarily serve us so much anymore.
Right. Not so much. And especially when you start kind of talking about, just like love and the femininity and just having that balance in your life, like that for me, being judgmental, having a critical spirit, man, it puts me in a bad place. You know what I mean? I don't want to spend time in that place anymore, because I've spent a lot of time in that place in the past, in the masculine, and just being a huge knucklehead, being mean. Like I don't want that anymore. So but
maybe it's not you. It's not
it's just not serving me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, but at some point in time, it did. You had to be that tough.
Right.
Man.
Right. Or at least I thought I did.
Yeah.
I think it was a false sense of being, or a false sense of security. You know what I mean? For me personally, but
But now you're like going inward and stuff, so you're about to be like this like spiritual tough badass, right? You're all huge, but also woke.
to be again fully transparent. Like something that I always kind of tell myself is like, Quentin, don't judge a book by its cover.
Sure.
But I know that all of us as human beings, we judge books by their cover, right? And I'm more referring to like judging another human being. Mm-hmm. So I honestly like to be outwardly perceived a certain way. Yeah. But then when I actually step into, or somebody steps into a conversation with me, they're like, oh, like this guy has tattoos and he's kind of like a bigger guy, and he's, in a bodybuilding and kind of the physical culture. He's got a really loud voice and all this. But you know what? Like he's actually got a really tender heart. Like he's not, the book that, from the cover I thought that he was going to be. So I kind of like to I don't want to say play that game, but I kind of like to have that persona of like being a certain way. But then once you actually step into me, or step into a conversation with me, it's something different. So I don't know what all that is, but I like it. So
we're kind of like deconditioning from that, and I think it's cool. It's like people are like, we're starting not to like immediately judge somebody.
Right, yeah.
Like I have judgment too, bro. It shows up.
Absolutely,
and
man.
I'm like, what the hell was that? And then like ask myself, like, why did I just do that? Like, what's really going on? So,
yeah, that's something.
Be a good teacher.
for me, Beau, like being in the gym for a very long time, in the sense of like lifting weights, bodybuilding, powerlifting, being a college football player, and all this type of stuff. It like you're in the masculine 24/7, 365, and I've really realized, like I go into the gym, there are a lot of, for me personally, like triggers in the gym. So like as guys, you go into the gym and like there's this guy, and you kind of like size this person up, and you're sizing that, and I'm like, I've really realized like there's so many triggers when I step into the gym because of my past life and who I used to be. And so I've really had to hold on to the word peace. So like seriously, like when I go into the gym, like what I am telling myself, I have it written on my training log and everything, is I am peace. Like peace. I'm not here to judge that guy over there and that whatever goofy movement he's doing. I'm not, here to judge that guy that's all tatted up, that's yelling and dropping the weights. I'm not here to do, I'm just here to take care of my business, and I just want to be peaceful. Because I know, like when I step into the gym, like there's all this sizing and, kind of like how the guys are in that type of setting, and that's how I used to be. It's like, again, I do not want that. I just want peace, man. I'm here for peace, and it's just what I have to do to kind of like, step into who I want to be today and who I want to become. You know what I mean? And it kind of goes back to like the beginning of our conversation of the mantras and the words. And we have the pen or the pencil in our hand to write, the book of our life.
Right.
The pen, the pencil for the book of my life is not in your hand. It's in my hand. Right. I get to write my book, you get to write your book. Right. So it's like those words that we are, telling ourselves and putting out there, telling the world, like it's so powerful. So with all of that being said, quickly, and these are words that I had written down, and quickly for you and for me, because we got to wrap things up, because man, like it's not you, man. Like seriously, you and I think could just chop it up for a couple hours easily. We're already pushing that, but these are 4 words that I have written down, and they were written down before we stepped into this conversation today. Okay. And it's kind of interesting because some of them have kind of already come up. But what I want, I'm gonna say these 4 words. I'm gonna say one word, and I just want you to say like the first word or phrase that pops up into your mind. Okay, so no deep thinking, nothing. Just be like, I'm gonna say a word, you say a word or a few words.
Right.
That whatever word I say kind of invokes inside of you. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then I'll ask you the last question, and then we're gonna get out of here. So the first word, entrepreneurship.
Adventure.
Perfect.
That's it.
Okay. Love it. All right. Next word, family.
Love.
Okay. Next word, creating.
Life.
And the last word, love.
Everything.
Cool.
Everything.
You hit a home run on that one, dude.
Right.
Love it, man. Good. Okay. So, Beau, the last question I have for you today is, what sets your soul on fire?
What sets my soul on fire is creating and like this lust for life, like just like how much is possible, and within all that is like change, just evolution of us. It's like all it like jazzes me up, man. It like makes my body tingle. Just
love it, yeah.
Thinking about it. Things are actually like going really well in this world. Like CO2 emissions are dropping. People are being nicer to each other. And people are starting to like. It's cool, man. Lots of things are happening.
Man. Absolutely.
There's some bummerish stuff for sure, but when is there not? But like, there's like a lot of good happening, man. And
for sure.
Like, that's what gets me like up every day. Like I'm part of it. Let's go.
we are a part of it, man. I feel that energy, dude. Yep. For sure. Cool. All right. So if somebody has resonated with your whole story, a part of your story, if somebody wants to kind of follow along, find out more about Gypsy Build, everything that you've got going on, Beau, in your life, your business, all of those adventures, where can people find out more about you, the business, and what have you?
Sure. So the quickest way to get a hold of me and to get close to my website and stuff like that is just Gypsy Build on Instagram.
Okay, perfect.
It's just, that's where I operate most of. That's where a lot of my clientele is. Like,
cool.
And then from there, we can, start actual conversations.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So, Beau, I want to thank you, man, for your authenticity today. And I really want to acknowledge you for putting in the work in regards to that deep inner work, because, we live in this life, we live in this world. There's a lot of people that are struggling. There's a lot of people that are hurting. There's a lot of people that haven't done or haven't been awakened to that deep inner work. So I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for putting in the time, for putting in the effort, for putting in the energy, for doing that deep inner work. And I really appreciate you and want to acknowledge you for sharing your story today, because I believe in the power of the written word. I believe in the power of the spoken word. I believe in the power of storytelling in the sense of one human being sharing their story, and that most definitely positively impacts other human beings. So thank you for the opportunity to connect today, and thank you for being Beau. It's greatly appreciated, man. So
awesome. Thank you so much, man.
You're very welcome. Cool.
And I have to state one thing. This is kind of part of my inner work stuff. That I've apologized a lot on this podcast. I have to call myself out on that, and I don't need to apologize.
Amen.
So
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I just actually, seriously, dude, not today, but yesterday's post for me on my social medias was being unapologetic.
Beautiful.
And I you know, because that's something that I've, through some recent life experiences, I've realized, like, I don't have to apologize for who I am. I have a loud voice. I love to write. I specifically enjoy writing like love letters and love notes and all these different things, man. And that's Quentin, that's Q. I don't have to apologize. So we're right in alignment, man. And I appreciate you again for holding yourself accountable, because that's hard, especially when, you know, hundreds and thousands of people are gonna listen to this. You know what I mean? Like it takes humility and a lot of power and strength to do that. So
awesome, thank you, man.
It's good, man. Okay, so listeners, I just want to again thank you so very much for your listening ears. Thank you for hanging out with Beau and myself. I know for sure you have found great value in this conversation today. There's so much authenticity, there's so much transparency, so much realness, and that for sure is powerful. So if you want to find out more about the guests that I'm bringing on to the 127 Fit podcast, if you'd like to find out more about myself, you can find that information out on Instagram. The Instagram is at 127fit. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. I'm also on LinkedIn at Quentin Vars. If you guys would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star rating and review, and also subscribe to the podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. If you're interested in financially supporting the 127 Fit podcast, or if you think you or a friend or an acquaintance would be a great guest or guest for the 127 Fit podcast, please just send me an email or give this email out. Again, the email is 127fit@gmail.com. So if you think you'd be a great guest, if you have some connections you think would be a great guest, or also if you would like to financially sponsor or support the podcast, just reach out to me, 127fit@gmail.com. And as you guys are finding great value in a specific episode or episodes of the 127 Fit podcast, in which I know you are, please do me another huge favor and take that episode or episodes and share them on your Facebook and Instagram stories using the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow. And something that I just really want to share with you guys, as I asked somebody here recently if there was one message that they could share the rest of their life, what would that be? They in turn asked me, Quentin, what would be that one message that you would share the rest of your life? If there was only one, what would it be? And that one message for me, and I want to encourage you and leave you with today, is you are loved. No matter where you're at today in life, no matter what you're going through, good times, bad times, whatever, I just want you to know that you are loved. And with that being said, I will leave you per the usual with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time, until next time, I will catch you guys later.